Meeting is called to order at 6:30 p.m. We are recording, just so everybody's aware. We've checked the tech so folks can hear us in the room and online. First order of business, as always, is to review and make any changes to the agenda. I have two tweaks that I'd like to make. One is just adding a very short item to the end of new business, the Building Bright Futures storage request for the Grange Hall. That should take 2 seconds. And one removal, if there's no objection, I'd like to remove item 6E, revisions to the dog ordinance and the complaint process. We have a pretty full agenda tonight, so if there's no objection, we'll just table that to a future meeting. All right, if there's no other additions or deletions to be made, all right, hearing none, we will move on to the approval of the minutes. And since Mark is not here, and one of these is going to require Mark to vote on it, are folks cool if we just pass over this item for now and come back to it? Okay. Similarly, since Mark's not here yet, if it's okay to pass over Public Works and come back to it? Any objections? Okay. Then in that case, what I'd like to do is move to old business and see if we can get through a fair amount of this, and then at 7 we'll turn to visitors. Old business, first item 5A, just updates on the wastewater and streetscape projects. The only significant update, I think, since we last met is that the town was invited back to submit a full application to the Northern Borders Regional Commission for $1 million to assist with what is called the gateway phase of the center project, which essentially is the sidewalk from the rec center up to River Street, and the parking at the rec center, so that phase. So we have been invited to submit a full application for that. And the only other update is that the committee that's working on the RFP for the streetscape engineering work reviewed the RFP submitted by Hoyle Tanner and got back to them with a whole laundry list of clarifications and points that we need some work on. So we're waiting for that to come back to us with their revisions. Part of that is going to be a schedule for public meetings. And so as soon as we have that nailed down, and we have maybe dates, we'll get that publicized as soon as possible, because as we said multiple times, as we move into the streetscape work, there's some things we can get the ball rolling on now as far as, surveying and things like that. But as far as final design preferences, we'll want to re-engage the public information process on that.
Charlie, may I interrupt?
Yes.
You're very difficult to understand and sounds like your head's in a barrel.
It sounds like my head's in a barrel.
Very difficult to understand.
It's hard to
That
hear
would be
him.
a consequence of if he only has one speaker, there's a left and a right channel. One channel will be over here and one channel is you. That is unsolvable.
Okay. Did you catch that, Larry?
No.
It could be a result of how your speaker is set up and the fact that we're working with a left and right channel here, and your speaker might only have one channel, so it might be giving you mono sound.
Never caused a problem in the past, but okay.
Okay. My head's in the barrel, it better be a good one. Or something delicious.
We could just do this, and if anyone has to talk over here, they can speak up real loud.
Okay. So that is
There you go.
just the update on the municipal wastewater and streetscape projects. Any questions or comments or anything from the board on that? Okay, and we'll let people know as things get moving. All right, Mark's here, so if there's no objection, we'll pivot back to the item 2, the review and approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of May 2nd as written?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of May 2nd that was written.
Great. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion on the minutes? Hearing no discussion, we can vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes as written, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, motion carries. Next up, motion to approve the minutes of May 12th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of May 12th.
Just turned off and turned back on.
The recording did?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, as long as it's on. So we have a motion to approve as written by Mark. Is there a second?
I'll second. Wait, I wasn't there for that one.
Try again.
I'll second.
Looking at you, Leanne. Great, we have a second by Leanne. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes as written, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Got 2 abstentions. Great, so motion carries. Next up is Public Works. Roads and Bridges. Mark, any updates on roads and bridges, work being done, how are things going?
Yeah, we got quite a bit done last week. We did get North Hill graded last week, just to let you know. Said they hadn't been done in 5 years, according to somebody. We got that done. And the village is just about, we're putting some chloride on last week and, doing like a final grade on a lot of locations. So the chloride just holds everything together in hills. So we've got some more work to do up in the center, and we're working on that this week, but we're progressing pretty well.
Okay.
By the end of the week, we should be in pretty good shape. Yeah.
So you're saying by the end of the week, all the back roads will be graded with chloride?
Yeah.
Okay,
I think so.
material down?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, we're trying to get the smaller roads right now too.
Yep.
Over there, so get everything done. Yeah, I just got another load of chloride today, so we should be in pretty good shape. Yeah.
Great.
And I'm just waiting for still waiting for the brooms for the sweepers so I can finish sweeping the streets.
Okay.
Hopefully they'll be here this week, so we can get that done.
Okay, great.
So besides that, yeah, it's going well.
Okay, awesome. And then I don't know if you saw the email, I forwarded it to your Public Works email account, but we did get word that we did receive the FY23
Oh,
Better
yeah.
Roads Category D grant for $46,000 for the work on Hill West.
Yeah.
The culvert and ditching up by Charlie Carpenter's.
Yeah.
I think it's that one.
Yeah, this is the third time we applied, so we finally.
Yeah.
I think our share is like 12,000, but I did budget for it.
Yeah.
For that project, so yeah, I'll have to get some bids out, or just talk to a few people to see about getting it done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Any other updates as far as roads go?
No?
Okay. Any questions from the board or anything regarding roads and bridges? Okay. Next up is buildings and grounds. First one here is the ongoing 98 Main Street saga. USPS is still radio silent. I am still pursuing appraisal quotes on the building, as we discussed. It's really hard to get a commercial appraisal done, I guess, around here. But I did have one individual respond today that they would be available to do it sometime in July. So I'm waiting for one additional person to respond. So hopefully I'll be able to bring back at least one, if not 2 quotes to our next meeting. But I've contacted about 7 or 8 different appraisers, and only one has so far come back and said that they would be able to do it.
Was that through contacting the bank?
Yes. Yeah, so Sue, just so you know, I did contact Community National, and they provided me a list of appraisers, and one of them was one that did. Yeah, they were great. They were great, right on the phone. Yep, they were.
And Parma said
There's one on the other side of the mountain.
she'll get you the name.
Perfect.
There's one on the other side of the mountain.
Great. Yeah, I'm waiting to hear back from one person in Hyde Park, I think, and the other person, I'm not sure where they were located, the one that did respond in the affirmative that they could do it. So those are the only updates for the 98 Main Street building at this time, as far as kind of that process goes. The next item on here, the PSB Town Office Renovation Committee update. I don't believe there's any update from the committee itself on the work, but we do have the survey quotes that we addressed briefly last time. The library did respond that they are amenable to splitting the cost, and so tonight, if the board wants to adopt one of these quotes, we can move ahead with it. So as a reminder, we've got one quote from Harvey Chafee and one quote from Bernard and Jarvis. Harvey's quote has a cost not to exceed $5,000. Bernard and Jarvis has total estimated costs between $3,000 and $3,500.
Did we get a, Bernard and Jarvis, I think we were questioning the 3,500, that was.
Yeah, I didn't have a chance to get a clarification from him. I would read this as total estimated cost $3,000 to $3,500 is not to exceed $3,500. And
Yeah.
if we went with the quote, I would respond with that in writing,
Oh, okay.
that the assumption is that the cost will not exceed $3,500.
Yeah, because it doesn't say that, yeah.
Yeah. So is there, anybody want to see these? We looked at them last time, but if anybody wants to see them again. Okay. So if the board is comfortable, we can adopt one of these quotes tonight if there's a motion.
Did we establish why the discrepancy in cost was so significant?
We don't, my guess is it's a factor of how much time I think is going to be involved, because if you look at the hourly rate structure, the rates are comparable. One is actually lower than the other. However, it's the lower rate structure which came in higher in cost, so it's got to just be a factor of how much time they think it's going to take. So is there a motion to adopt one of these quotes, or do we need more information?
I'd be comfortable making a motion to accept the quote from Bernard and Jarvis, given that we're proposing in writing that it would not exceed $3,500.
Great,
I'll second that.
awesome. Any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we will vote. All those in favor of accepting the quote from Bernard and Jarvis with the clarification that the not to exceed cost of $3,500? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, motion carries. Water Commission, it's a placeholder for each meeting, because this is also the Water Commission meeting. I don't have any items on the agenda for the Water Commission.
No, nothing right now.
No, we're good on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Did Scott happen to get his test results back?
Not yet,
Okay.
not yet.
Okay, great. Then moving down, Public Works, if there's something else under Water Commission, the Longley Bridge Tap project, as a reminder, this is the project along the Trout River bank by Longley Bridge. It's a stabilization project which is being funded through a Transportation Alternatives Program grant. The only update I have here is I have a call scheduled with the municipal project manager tomorrow to go over the project schedule and cost overruns. Essentially, Dubois King came back with cost estimates that are well in excess of essentially what the project budget is, and so we have to make a call as to how we're going to handle that. Do we accept the overruns and assume that we'll come in under them given X, Y, and Z? Do we pursue additional funding? Do we pause the project and do construction next year? We have options, so we're not like back into a corner on this one. And because we followed the process as laid out by VTrans, we've done all our homework, so we haven't, we're fine. It's just a case of figuring out the best option moving forward. So hopefully we'll have more information on what the next steps there are tomorrow.
How much more was it over?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Linda just said basically that they came in well over, and we have to figure out, what our options are. So what I'll do is I'll chat with her and try to get a summary, and I'll email that out to the board so that folks can digest it, and then we can discuss it at our next meeting. And if we need to have a special meeting between now and then to make any kind of actionable steps on that, we can certainly do that. The scheduling of the call with her and today's meeting kind of didn't happen in the right sequence, but that's the way it is. So that is it for actions and updates under Public Works, unless anybody has any other business under Public Works. Okay, hearing none. It's 7:15. We usually do visitors at 7. If it's okay with the board, we can hop back to old business and see if we can clear item B, the municipal purchasing policy. This should be pretty quick. It's just a revisiting of what was looked at last time. So there should be a copy in front of everybody right now of the policy itself. If folks want to check the edits, first one is just the date on the top of the page, just when it was adopted. Moving down, we've added Mark as Public Works Director as a purchasing agent. This is page 2. Incidental purchases, that's been adjusted to 1,000. Minor purchases are 1,001 to 5,000. Major purchases are over 5,000, so those have been adjusted. Page 3, third paragraph, that last sentence is now gone, as we discussed. So that sentence, in addition, the pricing analysis, blah, 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 has been deleted. Bid specifications, so this is the dollar value that's been inserted there is $5,000. There was some discussion last time around bid procedures and estimates, and whether or not this language should be tweaked to cover estimates as well. But if you look above it, this sealed bid process is a provision of purchases exceeding $150,000 funded by federal grant dollars. If you actually look back up in the sorry, not back up, but later on in the policy itself, it talks about competitive proposals and other, where is it? Essentially, the language around getting other bids is included in here. Yeah, purchasing agents, best possible price and quality. Yeah, so under major purchases, $5,000. It references that as well. So the bid process here basically is only applicable to the paragraph above. So as outlined below, it is now in bold. It should be in bold in that. So that should help clarify that the bid process is only subject to that provision.
I asked about that, Charlie, and my reasoning for asking about that wasn't necessarily to change the bid process or to include language about estimates within the bid process.
Okay.
It was in order to get something in our purchasing policy about getting an estimate for major work for things like vehicle repair for our trucks and whatnot. So I'm not seeing that here, but I do feel like that's an important piece that is missing and has caused some issue in the past.
So I get what you're saying. So the criteria would be that we need to get a written estimate prior to executing on a purchase.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry if I was unclear and muddying the waters here, making this take yet another cycle of us meeting, but I do think that that's imperative to have in here.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there's anything in, because incidental purchases, estimated purchasing agents can make up to $1,000 without approval. Minor purchases, 1,000 to 5,000, have select board approval. Not required, competitive quotes from at least 2 vendors should be obtained whenever possible for minor purchases. Yeah, so there's nothing in here around a written estimate. So where that would be essentially required is incidental purchases then, right? Because if they have to bring minor purchases to the board and major purchases, the board, acting in the capacity of the board, would basically say, where's the written estimate? I think what you're describing would be for incidental purchases, the purchasing agent must receive a written estimate prior to executing on the work. Does that sound appropriate? Would that meet the?
I think that covers it.
Okay.
Knowing that with minor purchases and major purchases, we would be looking at something as a board to approve, so something in writing.
Okay. Shall be received prior to execution. Okay. Got it.
Thank you.
All right, cool. Then I will amend this and bring back clean copies for the board to vote on at our next meeting. Cool. Okay, great. It's now 10:07. I'm just looking at what else is on here and then what we've got for visitors and planning commission. What's the preference of the board? Do you want to jump to the planning commission discussion at this point? I'm just thinking about who's in the room and who we, can take care of and get out of here.
If we could wait a minute, we're still waiting for Barry.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
In that case, how about we jump to the town land former Jewett parcel discussion. Carissa Stein has some follow-up to some of the things she presented and some answers to some of the questions we had.
Okay.
Probably take about 10-15 minutes if that's
Yeah.
okay with everybody.
Yeah.
Does that work? Carissa, does that work with you?
Yeah, can you bring up the
Yep.
presentation?
What I will do is how do I go into okay. So I'm now okay, sorry. I can get rid of that. All right. Carissa, the floor is yours.
So Charlie mentioned, well, I watched the last select board meeting and you guys took a vote and some of the questions that were discussed. So this presentation is just to answer those questions and then look at next steps. So one of the questions was about Acuron, which was based on discussion, what was used on the field. Acuron has a broadleaf depressor, so we can't plant any broadleaves on this land for 18 months. So we kind of need to know when the Acuron was applied in 2021. I'm guessing.
I'm sure it was applied in May.
Yeah, it was probably before June 1st.
Planted. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, give or take date-wise. So yeah, all broadleaf herbicide, basically for all other rotational crops, need to be 18 months. And I can't speak specifically to trees or shrubs or anything like that because that's the federal label and that's what it says. So next slide, please. So another question was seed down to perennial forage hay. So we'd be looking at that 18-month time frame. We'd be wasting our time unless we did a test to basically say this could grow any clover or any broadleaves. Nope. Yeah. So they can do a bioassay. It was basically the checking the residuals. So we could plant oat, cucumber, beans, or peas to check if the atrazine is still active, and Acuron had 10% atrazine in it. So that's the one that is highlighted in green as far as testing for that one.
So just to be clear, so we could essentially go down and plant some beans, and if they turned yellow and the new leaves turned yellow, we would know that the Acuron is still active in the soil. Is that what you're saying?
I would take the soil and I put it in a location that's perfect for growing that crop.
I got you.
Just in case anything happens to it in the meantime, and check it. Yep, so we could do oat, cucumber, beans, peas, just to check the residual.
Cool.
Yep, next slide. Okay, so while we're waiting for that time frame, things that we could potentially talk about doing. So as far as I know, you guys didn't discuss what the actual cover crop was, but I'm assuming it's a winter rye because that's a standard practice around here, which is great. Winter rye is a soil builder, deep roots, sequestering those nutrients and getting that microbiology primed and ready to go. We could allow that to grow. I would suggest cutting it before it seeds out and leave that cutting, and that'll just be green mulch, so to speak.
Yeah.
for the land. And that's all that, building back that organic matter that we discussed in previous presentations. Soil test, I would recommend doing a soil test. We can do a standard soil test from UVM, so that's basically your NPK and then micronutrients. Or we could also look at doing soil health tests from Cornell University, and this would kind of give us a spectrum for our community and also like knowing what we start with and then where we're headed down the line based on the practices that we do.
Would you do both or would you do one or the other?
There's a big price difference between the two. So we might look into like actual rates and how many, and then come up with a good quote and then figure out how we'd pay for it. Just floating ideas.
Yeah. Do you have a ballpark as to what one of the UVM tests would cost?
Look at, I'd say it would be under, for total for the whole landscape based on the different growing conditions, I would say under $100.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And what about Cornell?
The soil health test, I need to go through and see like what parameters they need for how many. There might be just a couple sections that we'd want to do the soil health test in. So, but it can go up to 150. It can be like, they have different spectrums. So it can be like, I think it's 120 to 150 off the top of my head.
Okay.
For one.
Why would you wanna cut that winter rye before it goes to seed? My thoughts were if you cut it after it went to seed, then it would reseed for this year, at least have full of soil for this year. If it went to seed, then you cut it and the seed would, then next year you just plow it all under.
I think my, in the back of my mind, not knowing what we're going to do with it next year is my only hesitation to let it go to seed if we're going to cause any competition.
You're gonna want something to come back up to hold the soil.
Right.
So even whatever we do with it next year, it doesn't matter if that winter rye comes back up, I wouldn't think.
Right. Hold that thought. Let's go. Yep.
Right. Okay.
Go back one. Sorry, Charlie. Discuss concept and get input from recreation, planning board, basically any other members in the community that we should be bringing into this discussion. Parma for Montgomery Cares and Lois Lumbra. Basically, how can we meet some of the local food needs?
Community gardens, too, probably.
Yep. Yeah, I thought they weren't meeting anymore, so I didn't officially put them on here, but maybe I'm wrong.
The community gardens?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we're meeting.
Okay, sorry. Yep. Thank you. So this is the land for other members in the room, other folks in the room. So the concept is Montgomery Intervale, and you can see these are not set in stone. Wetland restoration, floodplain riparian restoration, native plant nursery, agroforestry opportunity, fruit nut orchard, compost site, community use, space in the middle, and that's just based off of assessments from the land and how wet it is, how dry it is, what the soil type is. So another next step would be to potentially flag, stake, mark the field out and reach out to potential partners for input, plans, information on funds program. I would suggest this after we talk to other community members, other planning, other commissions and boards. And then you can see a couple the bullet points on what we had talked about doing, and I'm not sure if that's the last. Oh, I have one more slide after that. Yes. So then the potential partners that we are thinking about bringing in, and we don't have to agree to anything, just like, okay, this is what we're looking at. What programs are out there? What would your estimates be? That way you guys get more information about what to do next.
Awesome.
Any discussion, questions?
Yeah, any questions from the board or anything? Want to go back to any slides that anybody has a question on, or?
Well, I guess the plan for this year would just get it mowed, and then all this stuff wouldn't be able to happen until next year.
Yeah, so going back into the allowing it to seed out, I think my only hesitation on that is if
Because it really needs to be plowed and harrowed, and it's just a cornfield, so.
Yep.
It's gonna have to have something done before you just plant trees and all that stuff in it.
So Chad Salmon's land just down from that, they didn't, that was the cornfield and then left fallow, and then it was planted to trees and shrubs.
Oh, okay.
But then Mother Nature did its thing, dropped a lot of seed. It was a good seed year for maple and box elder, and it came up just fine in areas that we wouldn't be introducing agriculture into.
Oh, okay.
I got you. So what you could do is potentially you could mow the areas that would be in the wetland restoration, floodplain restoration areas so that the rye is not competing with natural regeneration.
Yeah,
And then we potentially leave the rye in the community use fruit and nut orchard areas, to Mark's point, because those we want to actually go in and do some dirt work to.
yep. This would be, traditionally, most of these partner groups have planted these areas, put stems in the ground. But there's a lot of riparian work and discussion out there about just letting it regenerate itself. And then you kind of we've got Japanese knotweed out there, you keep that in control.
Yeah, that's what's going
Suppressing that, but allowing the native to come back if that's what we choose to do. So, yeah, I'm a little apprehensive about the competition from the rye seeding itself. But then the community use, or where we're going to do fruit nut orchard and,
Yeah.
I think there's opportunities there. And I think bringing in those partners will help some of those discussions and clarify what we should be doing
Okay.
In the next 2 years, which will be important.
Cool. So it sounds like, immediate steps would potentially be, if the Conservation Commission is willing to, or you're willing to run a soil test, to basically do the bioassay test, to get the levels of the acuron persistence.
So that's two different things. You can do the bioassay, actually planting something and see what happens to it. And then the secondary would be soil test. I would recommend soil test no matter what we do.
Oh, okay, I was gonna do both, but
Yeah.
if we do the soil test, we don't need to do the
You'd have to do both, but sorry if I heard you wrong, that the bioassay and then the soil test would be two different things, not the same. Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
Well, if the Conservation Commission is willing to do the bioassay work and to run with the UVM standard soil test, I think that's what I would say, and then.
Or the Cornell one, whichever one you think is best.
Yeah, we can discuss that at
Yeah.
the next meeting
Or we
we
can
have.
get a little bit more clarity on the Cornell cost, I think, maybe, because if we don't quite know the cost of that, if we think the UVM one's gonna be around $100 the most, I think probably comfortable moving forward with that.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, that
Well,
one would
we
be
have money also that we could,
Yep.
Yeah, I can't speak for the whole commission, but we'll definitely have it on the agenda.
Okay.
So, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Flicker.
Yeah,
Your eyes, Charlie.
No, what bothers me is if that flickers, the modem's gonna go out and we're gonna lose internet. It'll have to restart. Okay. Thank you, Carissa, for that and for all the legwork that you've put into this. I guess what I would, to formalize it, I would move that we authorize the Conservation Commission to run the soil tests as described through the bioassay and the UVM soil test. And that we also authorize the commission to essentially get the ball rolling on we'll call it a meeting with partners out there, whatever form that ends up taking. But if you want to start kind of coordinating that for something later this summer.
Yeah.
Does that sound good?
Yeah, and I'd like to email, keep you guys in the loop via email if that's okay.
Yep.
With what's going on.
Perfect.
I know you guys got a lot on your plate, sorry. Thanks.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Great. We have a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, motion carries. So it's now 7:06, so if it's cool with everybody, we can pivot to visitors. Has everybody signed in who's here.
Yeah.
So we usually go visitors in the order folks got here, and can't quite recall what order folks got here. And I think Sue, you were here first, so
No, I'm gonna wait to go on the agenda.
okay. Yeah, Peter, you were in here. You were here next. Do you want
I
to?
think we can proceed with or without Barry at this point.
If you want, we can just do a quick pass for any visitors not on the agenda. If that.
No,
Yeah.
let's do it,
Okay.
because he's gonna come.
Yeah.
well, we're an agenda item, so we might as well wait till.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, then what I'll ask is, are there any visitors here for an item which is not currently on the agenda? Dan, Dan, why don't you go ahead?
Sure. I know it's a busy night, so I'll try and be quick. I'm here to just share with the board and then everybody else present. Myself and two other community members, Sarah Bordev, she lives over on Regan Road, and Bill Haney, who lives up on Mountain Road. The three of us are working together and just formed a nonprofit in town called Montgomery Community Project. And this nonprofit was created with the function of, especially since the pandemic, I think there's been a big move for a lot of people working from home. And in our community, as we all know, there isn't a great service with wireless and access to internet. So consistent internet and high-speed internet. Downtown, we do have a lot better service, but once consolidated gets out into the sticks, it's not nearly as reliable. So what we kind of decided to do is band together and try to figure out if there are some solutions to help our community, help Montgomery and the neighboring towns with getting access to the internet, right? So we are in the early stages still, but our hope is in the next 6 months or so to find ourselves a place somewhere on Main Street to be able to create a working space, a co-working space, and sort of the three services that we are looking to offer. First and foremost would be in access to a flex space. Essentially, it'll be for community members to be able to come in, pop up a computer and just do some work from this kind of office with kind of open seating, some called sofas and tables and that sort of thing. The second thing we'd like to be able to offer is full private spaces. There are members of our community that have moved to work from home and their home might not be well suited to that. They might have kids running around and might be really hard to stay focused on work, or they might just not have enough sufficient internet access. So we'd like to be able to rent out individual offices on a monthly basis. And if not whole offices, the third option would be a shared office. So the idea is any community members that would need a place to basically do their job that can be done remotely, we want to be able to meet that need. Where we are currently, we're in the process of writing a ton of grants, or rather grant applications, to get funding for one of 3 different locations that we're currently in discussion about. With nothing firmed up, I don't want to share too much about the specific locations, but they're essentially all on Main Street. And again, the idea is to add value to the community that way. So just wanted to kind of introduce myself to the board, kind of field any questions you guys might have currently. And then, in the coming weeks and months, I imagine you'll hear more from us. I know we're applying for the ARPA funding as well. So just wanted to raise awareness on that in case anyone has any questions.
Good for you.
Thanks.
Any questions from board members or any questions from any visitors? All right, awesome. Thanks, Dan. Keep us in the loop, and we'll do the same as we progress with all of that.
Absolutely. Thanks, Trevor.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Are there any other visitors here that are not here for a previously warned item?
I don't know if it's under other business, but should I wait then for the dog officer?
For the dog officer?
Grab her before she leaves.
Yeah, I mean, if there's no objection, we can jump to the animal control officer appointment discussion now. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, hearing, yes.
Well, I would like to apply for that position.
Yep.
And so I'd like to tell you what my side of it is. I would love to, first of all, there's not a lot of dog problems in Montgomery, really. I mean, there is dogs that get lost and found, but usually Facebook or people call me up. So I'm asking, I would ask for $25 an hour, And it sounds like a lot, but if I go out to a call and it takes me 45 minutes, I'm not going out for $15. You know, it's not worth it. So, and like I said, the only time that there would be any larger expenditure would be during the census. And I'm pretty good at that. I mean, you can see what I charged last time when I did it. I think I charged like $200 and I did half the town. So, and another question that I would have, if, you know, you consider me, is if there are strays. I mean, I can take strays to my house if they're friendly. I have kids at my house all the time, so if I have a dog that is not able to be brought to my house, what is your option for keeping it until the owner's found, or if the owner's found, which is not a common thing in Montgomery, but that would be my question, because I wouldn't be able to bring all dogs to my house. And
Yeah, we-
temperament.
I ran into the problem because Franklin County Rescue in St. Albans doesn't take dogs, only cats. I called like boarding places, and it was cost prohibitive. I couldn't do it.
It's like $35 a day.
Oh, it was more than that.
Well, depends on where you're going, but
Yeah.
yeah, and some places, you know, aren't gonna, if the dog's not vaccinated, you know, they're not, some
Right.
places won't.
Which is,
even
I had
take
to
it
have the
anyway.
vet come and vaccinate, you know.
So that would be the only issue that I would see. But like I said, you know, my experience over the years, there isn't a lot of big problems with dogs around town. Every once in a while, something happens, you know, but.
Yeah.
So, and I guess that's all I have to say.
Well, isn't the dog census mandatory by the state?
It is. It is. Well, and that's another thing. I can do that this year, but because of my lister duties, I wouldn't probably start until after July, at the end of July. You know, it'd probably usually takes me, if I go out like an hour and a half, once or twice a week, it would take me, you know, maybe a month, because what I do is I put little hangers on the doors that says, it appears your dog is not licensed in this town. This is what it costs, please call or, you know, come to the office. And then if they don't respond within 10 days, then I send a second letter saying that if you don't respond at such and such a time, according to the ordinance, you'll be fined or the dog will be impounded. The last time I did that, most everybody did license their dogs, you know, because a lot of people don't realize that that's an annual thing, or they forget, you know, so it's not like people do it on purpose, but some do, but not.
Barking up their own tree.
Awesome, thanks Linda.
Okay.
So just as a point of information for the board, we had discussed at the last meeting, reaching out to the current animal control officer who handles Richford and Berkshire. This is Tracy Ovitt. I did have a chance to speak with her following our last meeting about interest and availability. She would be interested in the position. We did discuss compensation, and currently she is receiving $500 a month from the town of Richford and $400 a month from the town of Berkshire. We did not come to any kind of rate. Essentially what I asked her is, would she be willing to, you know, work with us based on population and need, and she said, yeah, I think so. But we didn't hammer out any exact, you know, what that would come down to as far as a fee. Just some quick math, you know, if because what Linda's proposing is an hourly rate, which is currently how the position is structured. If we were to go with a stipend, if we were to use the Berkshire rate, which she currently charges at $400 a month, if we use $25 an hour, that would mean 16 hours of dog officer work a month. Which, I mean, you've served in the position before. On average, how many hours a month are you putting in?
Except for the census, 3 to 5.
3 to 5, yeah.
Maybe, and that might be some months none.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to say that Tracy Ovitt does a very good job.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe we could consider, because she might have someplace to house the dogs.
Yeah.
So we might be able to consider using her as the pound keeper, so to speak. I can talk to her.
Yeah. And I did ask her about that, and I think the way she described it was, she's got people. It wasn't any one individual or one place. I don't think she houses them at her house, but she does have a network of people that she does use. So that's just my point of information as far as kind of, I did speak with Tracy, and that's kind of what she's at right now as far as compensation goes. Again, we didn't set anything specific to Montgomery, but if you look at comparable communities, that's, I think, where we'd probably fall, would be around that $400 a month.
And I would say that Berkshire and Richford, especially Richford, is very busy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So board, we can move on this tonight, we can get more information, we can do whatever we want to do, but we haven't had a dog officer for a while and we really need one.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I remember when you were dog officer, Linda, and people, like you said, still are calling you, like, it seems like we're a good fit still. I do wonder, I know you go away for the winter, so how would that play out?
Well, I went away one winter for 4 months.
Oh, and that's not every
And I did
year?
go away this summer for 6 weeks, but usually I'm only gone for 2 or 3 weeks in the winter. So,
okay,
that's not my plan, is to leave for the whole winter. That's after I sold my house. and
Yeah.
I was kind of living down there for a while, but,
oh, okay, I misunderstood.
But
I
no,
thought
that's a
that
good
you,
question though, because I do go off for 2 to 3 weeks at a time.
well, but if that's the case, we can maybe coordinate with
sub.
CC as a backup or something, if she was willing.
Or find someone in town to sub for that amount of time.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, again, board members, we have the power, we
I
can
have
exercise it.
Before I leave,
Linda, yeah.
I had a question because in your mail, the listers left an extension form.
Yes.
And I just wanted to let you know about that. We do that because it's due by June 4th to lodge our tentative grant list, and we just do that just in case.
Yep.
We're a little late, so.
And I'm realizing now that I did get that right after the agenda was posted, so it was not on here, but if there is no objection, we can add that for this evening.
I think last time you just signed it. I don't know if you had it on the agenda or not, 'cause it's not really, it was just procedure.
Yeah, I think we'll formally do it tonight just to make sure it's formalized.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so as the dog officer, is there a motion coming out of this conversation, or is there an action that we need to take to gather more information?
I make a motion to hire Linda Kluba at $25 an hour to do the animal control officer.
Great, we have a motion to appoint Linda Kluba as dog officer at a rate of $25 an hour. Is there a second?
And mileage of the going state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Leanne. All those, any further discussion on the motion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, motion carries. Thanks, Linda.
Yeah. Charlie is a visitor still?
Yes, sorry, Larry, I guess I didn't see your hand come up, but yeah, so we are still under visitors, so.
You also should know Jim Shiley's been waiting to say something too. But,
Yep.
all I'm requesting is get a look at your purchasing policy, rough draft when you get it finished, please.
Okay, yep,
Thank you.
I will send you one.
And Jimbo's wait.
Yep, yeah, and Jimbo, go ahead.
Cool. Can you all hear me or no?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So I keep running into a problem where neither of my houses' addresses is like they don't work. Like they're not valid. They don't. They keep coming up as not official addresses. And I've what it scares me the most about is the house in the village that I use as an Airbnb thing. The 911 address. That road is both known as South Richford Road and as Fuller Bridge Road. The tax address is Fuller Bridge Road, but the 911 address is Fuller Bridge Road, but the physical address is 34 South Richford Road. And there is some confusion, and I would hate for there to be like a situation where, like I've had to rely on saying in the old toy factory building, in a situation where I needed someone to know that building. But if there was a way that I could get a solid, definite address, that would be great.
Okay. I don't know what the process would be for that off the top of my head, because I know that the clerk usually establishes the E911 address when a property is created or gets one. In this case, it sounds like there's two different processes coming to play. Does that sound
It is,
accurate?
because that's come up before with someone else on the road too.
Okay.
That said, hey, you know, it's saying it's South Richford Road, but it's really Fuller Bridge Road.
Yeah, and does he get his check at the post office, does he get his mail at the post office in the village?
I do, and the post office claims my address is 34 South Richford Road, East Berkshire, Vermont. That's my mailing address. That's my fourth address on that property.
It's true.
Okay.
I don't know.
I've gone to the town office and I've asked them a bunch of time, and they say 52 Fuller Bridge Road. But if I use 52 Fuller Bridge Road, Kenny Domina's old house comes up, and like 2 times people have been like, you're running a scam. You're saying you're renting this house, but this house comes up, and like if they type that into their GPS, they go over the bridge. And so like the people, I keep asking how to consolidate, and like, well, maybe go to the select board, maybe they could help.
Yeah, so I don't know, I don't have an answer right off the top of my head, Jimbo, but what we can do is, I can do some digging into kind of how we can get this remedied.
What about Lois's address and Gyla's address? What are their addresses?
So I think it's worth reaching out to people in that area, because I
Yeah.
know that like people on Bank Street have that same problem and can't get things delivered.
Yeah,
I know that we've had things delivered to our house for Dave Powell, who's living at the Lantern, like the house there, because they, like UPS won't deliver there because it's not a legitimate address. It doesn't
Yeah,
match
yeah.
up.
well, I
And so I
think,
think it's a wider problem in that area right there.
yeah. I mean, I know, because I think there's an issue, well, there's multiple layers to this, right? There's the FedEx UPS delivery issue. There's the USPS delivery issue. There's the what pops up on Google Maps issue. And they're like related, but I don't know if they're all connected. So let me do some digging, Jimbo, and see kind of what we can come up with to try to get this like officially cleared up so that this doesn't happen. I can't tell you tonight kind of what that's gonna be, but let us check into it and we'll get back to you as soon as we can.
I know for what it's worth on the GPS thing, because I'm in Enosburg, right, my house, for instance, and there isn't, if you like Google GPS your address, you can submit corrections essentially
To Google.
to Google.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that's just one
But
layer.
in this
but-
case, it sounds like legally, like outside of Google or FedEx not knowing left versus right or whatever, it sounds like legally he actually has 2 different addresses right now.
Okay.
Yeah, and
I have
that's,
a tax address. I have a tax, the property I pay taxes on is
yeah,
52 Fuller Bridge Road, Montgomery, Vermont. But it's like that, technically, that is not, and I don't know how it happened, but like for years it wasn't a problem, and it only sort of recently became a problem.
Yeah.
The 911 thing is really, because I do voice over IP for the phone down there, so if someone called 911, it would be just really scary if they're, ironically, I think the problem might have started when they tried to change addresses based on curbage distances for 911, and if, in trying to fix the problem, we've made it sort of so confusing that people don't know what road is which and where on the road you are. So I mean, like I don't know. It seems like it could be a really bad problem.
yeah, okay.
Are you 34?
52.
South Richford Road?
Your 911 address, 34?
No, my 911 address I've been told is 52 Fuller Bridge Road, Montgomery, Vermont.
54?
52.
52?
I would put a 52 on the front of your house so you can see it from a truck.
I have that. That is already there. The trick is though, then if you tell people that it's 52 Fuller Bridge Road from the get-go, and then that's where they're trying to go, and they go to a different house, it would just seem it would be great if all the addresses were the same. So I do I do have a 52 that's actually on that little well thing in front of the house. So, and push comes to shove, hopefully that would work, but like I would hate for it not to.
Okay, well, let us do a little bit of digging, Jimbo, and we'll try to get you, an answer as far as what the next steps are here as soon as we can, because that's like a danger thing, so.
Yeah, and just another, and one, you were talking about how many layers there are to it, like, when they put in the sign, like I guess it was 2 years ago, it says Fuller Bridge Road, but then like all of the GPS stuff says South Richford Road. So it's like there's just like conflicting stuff. And sort of when we were a smaller town and everyone knew everything, like it was like, oh yeah, Jimbo's house, but it's like nothing losing that opportunity. So
okay.
Well, thank you.
Let's see what we can do, and we'll
chiming in.
look into it.
Appreciate it. And then are dogs allowed at select board meetings or no?
So dogs, well, I don't know officially currently today as written, but the policy right now is that dogs are not allowed in this building unless they're a registered service dog.
Okay, cool. I would have come down in person, but I got a dog and it gets anxiety.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
Okay. Thank you for your help and thanks for the good work, guys. And Mark, the road does look great.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Awesome.
All right,
Thanks, Jimbo.
Bye.
Melissa, did you have anything for visitors?
No, I don't, Charlie. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Melissa. All right, so where are we? Yeah, so if we're going by the agenda, and we move through old business, if there's no, I'm looking at the time right now, is everybody okay pushing the building use policy until the next meeting?
Yeah.
I know we pushed it a few times, but if everybody's okay, we'll table that till the next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna table old business item E. I believe everything.
It's item C.
Item C, I'm sorry, when I crossed it out, there's a line through the C and it's like an E. I think we covered everything prior on the agenda. I just wanna make sure we didn't miss anything. Visitors, old business. So the next item up would be old business, item E, which is a Menage, 68 Hagens Notch Road.
Yeah.
So if we're gonna do that, then why don't we pivot to that and Sue and Doug give you guys the floor to describe what you need and how we can help.
Well, in further research, I don't think that we should do a health order or emergency health order. I was able to get a copy with great difficulty on the website for the vacant I know, for the vacant and dangerous building ordinance. I think going this route with the safety officer over here and myself, that it's going to be cheaper for us. We're not gonna have the legal fees or the court fees. I think that with this ordinance, we'll be able to, send him Menage letters and, but we still need Ellen write a letter to him about the zoning violations with all of the trucks and the boats and the whatever is there. But with this vacant and dangerous building, I mean, it's gonna be a fire hazard. There is broken windows, yeah.
We need a written complaint.
There's no water going to that.
So we should
We
have
have the
one
written
from.
complaint, I have it right here. You what? In the house?
They were just in that house the other day.
Well, they were here
We heard that, yeah.
Memorial Day, Mother's Day weekend. We have the written complaint, Deb.
Okay, well, I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, it was, back from March.
I mean, there's gotta be, it depends on how far you wanna pursue it, to the point where you're tearing the house down and
No.
creating a vacant lot, but you're.
First of all, I think the listers, Linda, you're gonna take it off the grand
Well,
list.
we have removed the dwelling because it's uninhabitable. I've been inside it and I've talked to his sister and they don't have the money to do anything in there. She did ask someone to come and take some of the vehicles off there, but he only took the ones that were, worth
Worth it.
taking. They're not.
He had the guy Ricky Mason take them, right?
Right. But she did say that Roland is not able to do that at this point. And her other brother, she's taking care of both of them. They don't have any money. So it doesn't sound like they're gonna be doing anything really. I think they just came to take things that they might want out of the house.
And they removed all the bags with the feces. They did do that. They removed the bags. I don't know where they put it.
They're not.
I don't know what they did with it, but.
Okay.
But I think that, and then, they're delinquent on their taxes, maybe a tax sale, or I don't know what Anita has planned. But I think that between Doug and I and, Ellen with zoning and everything, we should be able to,
Well, I have
Get the
the
town-
authority to pursue it to the point where we're finding them by day and so on and so forth, but if they don't have any money, we're not gonna get it.
That's
yes, you will, because the house, you put a lien on the property. That's what you do.
Right.
The fine goes against the property, so if it gets sold at tax sale or however, you recoup the money, we get the money that way.
But is the goal to get the property cleaned up right away or try to put it to force
No,
it
the
to
goal
tax
is-
sale as is?
Whatever comes first.
Because somebody's gotta spend money to put everything in a dumpster and ship it out with a
But
machine.
we have to notify him
Right,
by mail. We have to do it two ways, certified mail, first class mail.
right.
He won't sign for the certified mail, but you know that he's getting the first class mail because he showed up here with his sister and somebody else and they cleaned up the property. They had until May 10th. They showed up here May 7th. And I don't know whether they stayed with the other sister, but they did clean up some of the property.
Okay.
But Ellen needs to send them the zoning, the same thing about all the violations.
Okay.
If they don't wanna do it, we can hire people to come in and do it and add it as a lien against the property.
That you can do, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
we gotta do something.
step one, you said there's still power to that building. We need to get that disconnected because that's my immediate hazard to the neighbors. There should not be power in that structure.
Okay, but, okay, and I could, maybe this, we could just, I don't know, because the select board has to be in on this. Do we have the right to do that, or do we have to send them a letter telling them that we're gonna do
Well,
that?
if he doesn't have the money, he's probably not paying his electric bill. So I mean, I could stop by and check the meter and see if the meter's
See,
active.
yeah, okay, yeah. I mean, I would think
But I
that's a
wanna-
good
I
idea
wanna
because
be-
it's a safety hazard.
Okay.
And there are rats.
Okay.
They're not mice, they're rats.
Okay.
So, yeah, well, that's the ones, and the house next door to that one is also something that you,
Yeah.
again, it's another vacant building. We've got a few that Doug and I are gonna work on.
Okay. So what do you need from us?
We need your permission for us to go ahead and, because the girls are gonna have to, we need a letter written, really being quite adamant to Roland, about what we're going to do. Outlining the steps, what we're gonna do,
Okay.
give him a date to do by. And here, boy, I gave him 30 days. Here, it gives him 15 days.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to connect with you
Yeah.
offline and
Yeah,
together a
exactly,
letter.
that's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
And maybe, you and I and Doug can sit down, I can't do it this week. But I could do it anytime
And
next.
talk to Ellen and get her.
Yeah,
Well, you need
I'll
to
email
talk to
Ellen
Ellen.
tomorrow.
And that's why I didn't know whether you wanted to, I mean, she knows, but I brought the zoning book, I mean, there's definite guidelines that he's,
Yep.
you know.
Okay. Well, I'll ping Ellen and make sure that she is aware of that and she can get on that on her.
Oh, sure, he's raising his hand because maybe Anita has something to say.
Yep. Larry, go ahead.
Just as a matter of, what I believe is if you do work yourselves and try to put a lien on the property, the only way you're gonna get that lien money back is if you actually sell that property. Not through tax sale. It can't be added to the tax sale.
Oh, you can't recoup through a tax sale.
It's a separate lien.
It's a separate lien completely.
Process in the tax sale.
Huh.
So it's a separate,
I'm pretty sure you can't have a tax sale to recoup those, but if you have a tax sale because taxes haven't been paid, perhaps, I don't know, perhaps you can add on the town's, ordinarily, mortgages, any lien is erased with a tax sale, except those of the federal government and, and like the water bill and things, but I don't know about fines, if that could be erased or not.
Well, we can do a little bit more digging, but thanks for flagging that, Larry. So we'll make sure that we're clear on that process.
It sounds like it's not gonna be contested, in my opinion.
right,
So is there, in this ordinance, is there some sort of, or in the state law, is there a forfeiture process?
I have no
They
idea.
can just forfeit the property to the town for sale to recover costs of demolition. I mean, they can't afford to do anything
I think
themselves.
that
What are they
we-
gonna do with it?
are any of you familiar with this ordinance? I mean, there's quite a bit in here and the select board is responsible for it.
Yeah, honestly, we haven't looked at that since Darren wanted us to pass it.
The last
Well,
one I
it's
was
gonna
on
come
Red
in your
Lake for, a
benefit
regular
now.
COVID hit.
It's great, yeah, there were some projects that we were looking at, and then, Darren was that was his thing, and when he left the board, that, like a lot of things, if there's nobody here doing it, it tends to get pushed to the side when someone picks it up again. So, but if we wanna use the process, by all means, let's use it.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I honestly haven't read that ordinance in a couple of years, so I don't know, I have to go back through it.
Just
I
an
mean,
added
all
note.
through here, it refers to, like 32 VSA, it keeps referring back to the Vermont statutes.
Okay. So why don't we do this? I will ping Ellen to get her going on the zoning.
Just send in the letter,
Yep.
certified and,
Yep, and then I can get together with you and Doug whenever it works to
Next
get a
week.
letter from the board drafted so that we've got that going.
exactly.
And then we can check into the issues with the lien and the forfeiture process in the meantime. I can
Yes.
ask VLCT to help us
Oh,
with
he's
that.
he's waving again.
Yep, Larry, go ahead.
Just an added bit of information, may want to contact Barry Domina. Years ago, there were some materials found in the cellar that were very hazardous. And before we go considering demolition or something like that, we may need to look through that property very carefully.
Okay. Thanks, Larry.
Good to know.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so it sounds like we've got some next steps here to pursue, so
Yeah, I
we'll-
gotta look at the place. It sounds like it's
Right.
not locked up.
That's what, no, well, he broke a window to get in because the state police had locked the house and he had to break a window to get in.
Well, I deem it an immediate hazard, so I can enter the property.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Yeah, well, that's what I thought, if you went with a couple of your firemen and maybe you
He's
could.
not coming back there, then it's not good.
I don't know whether he's not coming back, I mean, that's.
Good with him there,
Okay.
Right.
it's not coming back. You gotta do something.
Okay, we've got some next steps, so
Yes.
we'll pursue
Okay.
them and do some homework to find out some of these questions. Sound good?
Okay.
Okay,
That's good with me.
all right, thank you for coming in
Thank
and
you,
for
Doug.
doing that. So we have now made it through old business, so we're on to new business, and the first item under new business is the planning commission report on proposed short-term rental ordinance. So at this point, I'll give the floor to whoever on the planning commission wants to introduce this and walk through it, and then we can open up for discussion if that works. We've got copies.
You got copies?
Yes. Thank you, though.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Sure.
That's the one we're supposed to be looking at.
This is the.
We have the one from 4-5, that's the right one.
Is there,
Yeah.
This is one
there
from
an eight?
510. This is the one from 510.
have you got an 8 on yours?
I don't believe we've seen one post 4 or 5.
Charlie, a few minutes after I emailed it to you, I got an email from, I think it was
You got
Alyssa,
an 8 or
saying that the wrong one had been sent.
Yeah, we don't have any.
And
No, then I guess we do need a copy, because yeah, sorry, thank you though.
You have
The
any-
only difference is number.
there's a couple more.
Okay.
Give a couple more.
215.
And what-
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There's one for each one.
Okay.
So if you would all read through quickly, and then if you have any questions,
Well, I'd love to just start by hearing kind of, I mean, anytime that we're proposing an ordinance, there's a problem we're trying to solve, right? So I'd love to just hear some background on the planning commission as far as where, like, what the thought process is behind this, kind of like what problems are we trying to solve? And then how this differs from what's currently in the conditional use process that's being employed in zoning. So I'd just love to hear some thoughts about kind of what the board's been thinking in terms of why this as opposed to that, and yeah.
I think one of the catalysts for this whole effort was the issue of people consuming our housing stock for business purposes of short-term rental. Thereby, and that they were focusing on the lower end to start with.
Okay.
The end that would normally be the first target for native Montgomeryans to stay in town. There's a chance to stay in town. I'm reminded of Jen Domina Cox's whole episode of I can't find a place to live and I'm really wanting to stay in town.
Yep.
The problem is, and it's an accelerating incidence of these houses being bought up for profit versus for, community.
Yep.
So, in discussing it among the commission, we quickly realized that there was little or no control to the people buying this housing stock. So we investigated a bit and found out what other towns are doing. It's not a problem unique to Montgomery.
Yeah.
It's a national problem, certainly a state problem, or a problem where any resort exists in particular. And the thrust of what was being done was to kind of corral these people. It's like the Wild West for them. If they have the money and the stock is available, the housing stock's available, it's an easy scoop up and an opportunity to make money.
Okay.
With very little skin in the game. Our efforts were to inject some skin in the game for them. And the first step in doing that was to identify the scope of the problem. Like how many short-term rentals are there?
Okay.
How many are registered through an Airbnb or, a vacation rental website? And how many are just completely under the radar? There is an industry association that gives you one number. Airbnb is a number you could probably just call out yourself. Vacation rental, the same thing. And our feeling is if we could get them to register, then we can exert some kind of cooperative control over what they're doing, so that they're not just coming in rampantly taking the housing stock.
Okay, but how would, I mean, I 100% agree with you that that is a problem and that the housing stock is the lack of housing is a huge problem. And I agree that short-term rentals have a part to play in exacerbating that problem. I guess I'm just trying to separate in my head, you have the lack of housing stock and the fact that it's being bought up for this use. And then you've got issues around that use, right? Because if you're gonna stop the transition of housing stock into STROs, then, I mean, the move would be to just limit STROs, right?
Well, yeah, if you could do it that simply.
Well, I'm just asking because like, that seems like if you're trying to stop residences from being purchased and
But
converted.
that
to
wasn't our
STRs.
request, was to eliminate SDRs. Our request was to find a means of an ordinance to address the SDRs.
But address what, I guess is what I'm asking.
Well, they also serve a positive purpose in supporting tourism.
The DRB came to the planning commission asking for more clarity. We in turn went to regional planning and discussed with regional planning the benefits of doing it through bylaws or ordinances. And regional planning recommended that we draft an ordinance and propose it to you first. And then, because it's a quicker way to implement it, and they felt it was more enforceable, and then to go to our bylaws as the next step and make a definite, right now, short-term rentals fall under lodging establishments, and they wanted us to separate that out more. Regional recommended that, but they said the first step was an ordinance, is why we're presenting an ordinance now.
So then to ask back to you then, so it sounds like an ordinance structure would allow us to do something greater than what we're currently allowed to do using the zoning process.
An ordinance process, I think, can adequately or more adequately address the day-to-day problems of places that exist, quality of life issues and safety issues. If we're going to, only way I can think of that we can really address the housing stock issue is possibly through zoning, not allowing that as a use in Village 1 and Village 2. But before we do that, we really need to get a handle on what the numbers are. And so we see this as a first step to gather information, get people registered, deal with the safety issues because they'd have to go through the fire inspections, et cetera. And once we know what's really going on, then comes stage 2, which is, okay, now how are we really going to address the deeper issues?
Okay, and so then just to clarify, so, because right now, my understanding is that if you are doing this in a property, you need to go through the conditional use process.
Only if you're in con.
No.
No.
It's in, right now, you need to do conditional use.
Depending on what.
Well, it's a conditional use unless it's a bed and breakfast, which means owner occupied.
Conditional use in every
district where it's allowed.
zoning. In every zoning, so that official zoning map, anywhere on there, somebody can have.
I don't recall whether it's allowed at all under Con 1. I know it's not under Con 2.
Exactly.
It's not in con 1.
It's right, you have to come and get a conditional use.
You have to get a conditional use in the village.
No, it's prohibited in lodging.
In Con 2, it's prohibited.
No, lodging establishments are prohibited in con 1 and con 2.
Right, and when we first went to the planning commission, it was, if this is correct, we were asking them to give us a definition for the zoning book of a short-term rental. Because short-term rentals do not fall, right now, they're falling under a lodging establishment.
Yeah.
And that's not what they are. So we wanted,
Okay. So,
We were asking for a definition.
okay, so just to get to the nut about it sounds like one issue that's trying to be solved is we just don't know what's happening, right? We don't know how many there
We
are.
feel like if we made a registry, then we would have numbers to look at to know where the short-term rentals are in the different districts.
Okay,
And just how many there are, like every regional gives us one number, every number of how many Montgomery has.
so how are we not doing that through the conditional use process?
Because they aren't, I don't think all are.
They're not coming to us.
Okay, so then if we pass an ordinance.
There's no start.
So then if we pass an ordinance, then,
They don't have to
Then
go
what?
before the planning commission if you pass an ordinance.
but if we pass an ordinance,
Did you say
I guess my question is, if we pass an ordinance, what, then what's, so then are we hiring somebody to go and troll through
Yes,
everything?
that's number 8.
Okay, and what, and so.
And who's gonna, but how are they gonna get paid? Who's gonna do it?
Number
It's a
8.
fee.
Yeah, who's it?
But you have to, but that's, the registration fee would come after the officer has gone and to that
No,
person
no,
and been
it's-
like, you're right.
So when you get an STR, you're registering, and that fee's paid every year.
They're just saying nobody will register if there is a
Right.
compliance officer first, is what she's saying.
Right.
So essentially what we're doing is we're
And it's
creating,
$250 one-time fee?
we'd be
No,
creating,
It says annual.
Oh, it doesn't, oh, it does say that?
It doesn't say that, but.
that would be an
It doesn't
annual
say that,
registration
right.
fee?
Yeah, that's an annual registration
Which is,
fee.
Charlie, that's not out of bounds.
It's not,
very
that's like one-
Philadelphia is 900.
Yeah, I'm
And
just trying to understand what we're talking about.
This is per property, not per individual. So if one individual has multiple properties,
It's per
they would-
property.
For property, yeah.
Okay.
And I think we decided it was a pretty fair fee, like it would be sort of like what they would make one night, the annual registration fee.
Okay, so, but basically, the position would be the detective, right? The guy, woman, the person who goes out to troll all these sites, pull all the information, and that's how we would figure out how many there are, as opposed to using the zoning process whereby anybody could file a complaint to zoning that there's a zoning infraction that would automatically kick to Ellen to then do that process.
The Airbnbs have already been vetted.
How do you mean?
Airbnb itself vets their renters.
I mean,
No,
by
no.
vetting.
Does that mean that Airbnb would tell the owners in Montgomery, hey, you've gotta go register with the
No.
town?
No, it means that they would require insurance,
Yeah.
standards be met, safety standards be met.
But they probably don't do the fire.
So
I
if
don't-
the
I'm not
ordinance
sure they
is,
even-
Okay.
I can assure you they don't,
Verify.
because I've seen a couple of these
And it's
places that
required.
refuse to do any work in because they won't come to compliance and they're
Right.
renting
And
unsafe
it's
conditions.
required.
With no
Supposed to be
means of
required.
egress.
They're
Places
claiming
where-
that-
Charlie, call for a point of
There's no
order.
verification.
Wait, oh, Larry's.
Sorry.
we didn't see your hand.
Charlie,
It's hard to see you, Larry, you're in the dark.
Sorry, Larry, were you asking just for no crosstalk?
I was asking you to call for a point of order so everybody wasn't talking over everybody.
Yeah, sorry, Larry. Yeah, so if we could just have one person speaking at a time, that'd be great. Okay, so I think I understand. I understand now the difference between the current process in zoning and what's being proposed here and the reason behind it. That I think was kind of the root of my question. So I understand the planning commission's perspective there. Yeah, Mark, go ahead.
Being on the DRB, I mean, remember when these first started coming to DRB, we went into the ordinance and into our zoning laws, and there was nothing on short-term rentals. So that's why the DRB went to the planning commission and said we needed to have some like rules. You know, so when we look at a place for a short-term rental, we have like, okay, how many people per in the area, or proof of rental insurance. You know, we needed some guidance.
Criteria.
Criteria to go by, and we didn't have it there. So I think that's where this.
But currently under zoning, you can dictate occupancy. Can you dictate proof of insurance?
To dictate under the conditional use, that's what it is.
Yeah, but you can, so currently you can dictate things like parking, occupancy. You can't, under conditional use, require an insurance certificate.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can, and we can require that they get the fire
Yeah,
inspection.
we've had
So what additional criteria would the ordinance allow the town to put on these properties that the zoning process could not already?
The zoning process, right now, the DRB, the zoning process does not fine these people that aren't registered, aren't coming before to get a conditional use.
But couldn't Ellen find them if they're found to be in violation of,
I think she has to have a complaint first.
yeah,
No, but she would have to send out a letter giving them 7 days to cure. And if the violation was that they did not have a conditional use permit, curing would be applying for a conditional use permit.
And it doesn't matter whether they're registered with Airbnb?
Say again?
It doesn't matter that they're registered with Airbnb?
No, that's.
Okay, good, okay, yep, I just want that, yep.
okay,
Charlie,
yeah.
it couldn't be Ellen, because Ellen's time is limited. So this person's gonna be a very active person.
Through zoning, it would have to be Ellen. She's
Yeah, it has to be Ellen
zoning,
through
if
zoning.
it
As a
was through-
compliance officer?
No,
If
no,
it
we're
was,
not talking
we're
about
talking
that.
about if we went through zoning, Kenny, for the changing the bylaws.
Changing the bylaws,
Like,
she's the zoning
enforcing the
administrator.
bylaws, that's Ellen's job.
Right.
This position, though, I understand is different from that, though, okay? I
Yes.
Okay,
understand.
yeah, I misunderstood.
Linda? Yeah,
Yeah, I know when I was on the DRB, the one thing that was unclear to me, because of the way the law is written, the bylaws, if you live on a property and you have an Airbnb, then are you supposed to go to the DRB for conditional use? And, that was my confusion. If you don't live on, so we were taking people who don't live on the property, they were coming to the board, we gave them conditions. But if someone lives on the property and rents out, we weren't requiring anything. So I just was unclear about how to handle that, because it's not in the bylaws.
okay,
Yeah, we've got to clean up the
That's what we're
bylaws on
looking
that.
for, right.
The planning commission is aware of
okay.
the problems.
And also on this, who's gonna enforce it once things are, who collects the money too? Who's gonna collect the $250? Is that gonna be Liz?
We have to go to the town.
Right, is that another?
Well,
job that
that's gonna go to Erin, it's another job for Erin? Or the treasurer?
Whatever.
Whose job is it
You
gonna
mean
be?
accepting checks? Well, I guess.
Well, it's just another thing to do.
Is there a,
But I think the fee would be supporting that person that's gonna be the compliance officer, and that person would be the one collecting. They would be administrating the SDRs.
So they now become an employee of the town?
Absolutely. We don't know,
So, but you're gonna limit the amount of hours and stuff,
we
so.
can't limit anything until we know, we have to have a year cycle to see
Yeah,
how much time it does
we
take.
do need to figure out how to structure it, though, just in
Yep.
terms of the employment law.
Insurance and-
insurance
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
Now, is the planning, so under, and I understand that this is not an ordinance, it's parts of an ordinance, there's other things that have to go. But would there be, is the planning commission proposing anything as to, currently if people are not using the conditional use process, if we've got someone with an STR in town and the STR guru sends them a letter that says, hey, I found you on this site, therefore XYZ, and what if that letter goes in the trash can? And is there
There's gotta be some
penalty?
Yeah, there has to.
So there have to be a penalty structure associated with this as well.
Consequence, yeah.
Okay,
Part of the problem is too, you've got the people in town that have come and gotten their conditions, they've done the right thing. And then you got the other ones who aren't getting their conditions.
And they already have the conditional use, so they don't have to pay this $250.
that's not, my understanding
No,
is that
that's zoning. This is not zoning.
this would negate that, and so anybody who's already gone through that process would have to start over.
You mean anybody that we've already given a conditional use to?
They would still have
They'd
to
have to go through
register.
zoning,
They
yeah,
would have to,
I don't know about.
Yeah, they've already come to
Made our
us.
decision.
but they have not registered at the appropriate fee, they're not on this list, so they'd still have to be governed by the ordinance. The zoning is separate from an ordinance.
Doesn't exempt it.
So my understanding would be if we passed this, anybody who's already gone through the conditional use permit would basically go back to square one and then have to go through this process. and be governed by the conditions set by the DRB separately. So you could have conflicting provisions through zoning and.
Anybody who registers and pays the $250 still is going to have to go through zoning, so why is it unfair?
Yeah. If you've
If they
already,
don't have-
if we've
if they don't
already,
have a zoning permit.
if they already came to us and did everything right, and we gave them a conditional use to have their short-term rental,
Right.
why should they have to come back, apply again, pay $250? We already told them, they're already complying.
Because
With
to
everything?
become part of the registry.
Well, you could take down their name, they could be agreeable to have their name.
It would be a yearly, the $250 would be an annual.
Would it be maybe that they could, people who've
I
already
mean, why
applied?
can't they just be grandfathered?
Why should they be exempt?
Because they did the right thing and came
Okay,
to
wait,
us and went.
So somebody who registers under the ordinance, what are they gonna do about zoning? They still have to go to zoning and get a conditional use. So everybody goes through two processes, it's fair.
Well, that,
You might not, they might not like it, but everybody goes through two processes.
So we could sit here all night doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
And it sounds like this is just a recommendation.
Yeah.
And those who will be taking this and considering it will having more conversations.
Yeah, and so I guess right now, we're just trying to flesh out what are the questions that we have to chase down as far as how would it conflict with zoning or not, and, so, all right, noted, we have to address the existing zoning bylaws and how the conditional use process would play with this. Question I had is, are fire inspections are required at STRs. Are fire inspections currently required under state law for short-term rentals?
Yes.
And that's,
Are for long-term rentals as well. If you're renting a house or
Yeah.
apartment, you're
I
subject.
think we gave you that information.
can we not have, can we just have one person talking at a time?
Regional as well.
So just to clarify though, like, if you have a short-term rental under Airbnb, state law says that you have to have a fire inspection. Yes,
Absolutely.
okay.
But I can assure you that many, if not
Yeah.
most of them out there have not had one.
So I guess one of my questions with the ordinance is, we've got potentially 1, 2, 3 rental insurance, that's a state law. So we've got like three things in here that are currently already in state law.
Peter, do you have it?
So we put it in an ordinance that we'd be responsible to enforce. So what's the rationale for having the town be responsible for enforcing state law?
The state has done this to us.
So then,
They passed the buck on to the town.
so but would the recourse then be to go back to the state and basically be a pain in their
Fire
ass?
safety is still actively pursuing this, they're not gonna do anything about it because they would have to create several more positions in the fire marshal's office.
Yes.
Just to handle these short-term rental situations, so they're trying to push it onto the local towns and let the towns sort it out.
Yeah, but see, that's my problem is that they don't wanna pay the money to do the work, so we gotta pay the money to do the work?
Well, they wanna collect the fees, they're happy to have us force this issue. Because then they're gonna collect the inspection.
But that's fine though, if we go to the legislature or the governor and we say like this and if we, I guess I'm having trouble saying like, oh man, the state's not doing their job, so then we're gonna do it for them and incur that expense and that process. To me, it's like, why the hell would we do that? Why wouldn't we just get up Scott's butt and force him to do something about it, right? Like, why would we try to enforce state law as opposed to trying to force the state to enforce state law?
In St. Albans, every rental, whether short-term or long-term, is inspected by their fire department. And that fire department collects a fee.
Right.
So in Montgomery right now, what other state law are we enforcing via ordinance or something else? Like, we don't go to all the inns and make sure that they furnish a copy of their meals and rooms taxes.
What about?
We don't make sure that all the restaurants and inns and stuff
The
give us
state is doing that too.
The state does that, the state inspectors do that.
okay. So again, I'm saying like, we're like, so it just seems to me like there's a weird little kind of conceptual nugget here that I struggle with as to like why we'd be responsible
Because
for
there
enforcing
isn't
state
somebody
law.
at the state level that is forcing compliance in this area, and so it's falling to the towns in order to do it.
They're aware of it.
But so isn't the remedy to get the state to enforce their damn laws as opposed to putting the onus on the town to do that for them? That just to me sounds like so ass backwards.
It seems like
I mean, it
if
is.
there's a state law that's not being enforced, that concerns us, that's a safety issue that bothers us, then, and we know the state's not gonna do it, push them to do it, but in the meantime, do it ourselves.
Oh, actually, Charlie, it's no different than current use and homestead, which they force on us, which we have to do.
And they have, there's certain requirements for that. We know unless we.
Yeah, but that process is different because that involves the listers having to establish values and things like that. I mean, that's a little bit more complicated
It's still the
than.
law that came in that we have to,
We have to make sure
we make
that.
sure it's done.
What about our abandoned building
So-
ordinance?
Parma, can I ask you a question? You're talking about homestead and things like that. What about people that have short-term rentals that are sort of qualified under that? I mean, do these things may negate one another? I mean, we have properties in town that are obviously not zoned commercially,
What you
but
say is,
Airbnb would be a commercial enterprise, yes?
there are
It's conditional
properties
use
in
of
town
those
that
things.
are renting and they're still getting homestead because
Right.
they're not honest on their, they're
Well,
not honest.
correct. We have people in town that
Yes.
are renting multiple dwellings on their property and claiming homestead and they don't even live here. They live in another state. So
Well, yeah.
there are clearly some issues, but my question is, does the short-term rental on a property take that property into commercial use?
Yes.
Yes.
We don't.
And so is that why it needs fire inspection? Because it's commercial use?
I don't think it takes.
Well, it's- I think-
If I do electrical work on a short-term rental
Yeah.
property, I'm supposed to send in an electrical permit. If I do it on a
Commercial
long-term
permit.
rental, I'm supposed to put in an electrical permit. That's what triggers the state to come out, the fire marshal comes out. They see
To inspect.
me as a licensed electrician
Thank you.
going onto the
But I think-
property and they wanna come inspect.
I think Emily's point, though, I think your point is more applicable to the homestead versus non-homestead, because we don't have commercial versus residential zoning, we've got uses that are allowed and not so like, but yeah, I could see where somebody who is currently getting a homestead exemption would be kicked out of, would lose that under this. Well, the question would be, say you rent your house for 2 weeks a year, but you live there for the rest of the year, do you lose your homestead exemption if you do it for 2 weeks?
No.
If you live there 2 weeks, it's not your homestead.
No,
No, if you rent
for 2
it.
weeks.
Or you rent it
It
for 2
would
weeks,
be,
no.
I guess.
Well, here it says
for 3
It says
weeks.
14 days.
Say you rented it for 15 days.
Actually, we did have a person that used to rent it for 2 weeks during Christmas and New Year's, and he always claimed 5% non-residential. He was
So
very
you
honest.
claim a percentage of your non-homestead.
Gary was a big.
So
You always claim.
that would be the process to do that, okay?
So you do have some honest people.
Well, that should be-
At least one.
But that should be made clear. I think that people also would
They just don't.
worry that, you know.
Okay.
Does the state,
Sorry, I'll let Melissa go ahead.
When we were talking about the enforcing state laws, and we could look to how Stowe does it, they have pretty unregulated short-term rentals in Stowe that they took it out of zoning completely. They don't have maybe it's an ordinance, I don't remember, but they have their requirements. And one of them, it's self-certification for fire and safety, and it's the Vermont Department of Health does have a self-certification form that every short-term rental is supposed to fill out. And it's fire safety, health safety. I don't think any short-term, or I don't know how many short-term
Okay.
rentals fill out that form, but that's how the state regulates it. It's self-compliance of a form that's supposed to be filled out annually.
Okay.
But I can text or email it to you if you would like.
That's how Stowe did it.
Yep. And well, that's how the whole the state asks for it also, or the Department of Health.
Okay. So two of the provisions that I had a question on too would be, so, what is 6 and 7 on the 510 draft? So, no outdoor activity after 10 or before 7 in Village 1 and Village 2. So to me, that sounds a little bit more like a noise ordinance thing than an STR ordinance thing, because I guess I'd have a hard time saying essentially the house across from the snowshoe has to be quiet at 10, but the snowshoe can go until 2:30, right? I mean, it seems like it'd be hard to kind of, if we're gonna do that, I think that to me is a noise ordinance, not an STR ordinance. Does that make sense?
It's been part of our conditional
Yeah.
use.
It's always been part of conditional use.
Put it as a conditional use, I guess. Yeah.
Well, it's listed as noise ordinance, in other words, no noise after 10 PM or before 7, no excessive noise. Doesn't mean you can't go out and, you can't get drunk supposedly and, you know, be in the backyard screaming and stuff. That's how what we put in our conditional use, but.
I guess that's a little bit of a hard time.
Well, that is a tricky
Charlie,
one.
the difference is, this is gonna be people coming in with no connection to the neighborhood, they don't have neighbors, they have people out there who are next door, right? Whereas, people that live here are generally more responsive to the needs of their neighbors.
Right.
And so, generally, so by saying no outdoor activity after 10, it means, you know, like no barbecues, no parties, so you don't have to police, you know, for noise.
I get that, but if the intent is to ensure quality of life for the district, why not just pass a noise ordinance that says?
If you want to pass a noise ordinance,
I thought.
I'm not saying I do, I'm just saying like, that to me seems like.
But I think there's like an addressing. No.
We have a noise ordinance.
We do?
We don't have a noise
No, we don't.
ordinance.
We have something though. I remember this whole
Yes.
conversation like maybe a couple of years ago.
But I don't, there's not one.
That was maybe for the
recorded
conditional
here,
use
I
permit
looked.
though.
Yeah, we
That's
don't have a
not
noise
for-
ordinance in
I don't
town.
think so.
Well,
Everybody refers to it because they say you're not allowed, they said 10 o'clock is the shut off for like the inn and the Phineas Swan with weddings. I'm telling you, Charlie, that's
Maybe
not
they-
there.
There's nothing recorded.
Yeah, we don't. it's
No,
not
That's
official.
there. I mean, that's,
And if that's what they're doing, they're not following it themselves, to be
they're
honest.
saying it's their noise ordinance.
Okay. And then I guess,
So the general noise complaint rule for the state,
Yeah,
the state police can come and tell you to quiet down after 10 o'clock.
a week
Yeah.
later.
But they're not gonna come out here, obviously.
and then I guess no overnight parking on the street, so we have a parking ordinance. So I guess my question there would be kind of how does this interact with the parking ordinance? Because the parking ordinance.
Well, this will be posted in every place.
Yes.
So you got somebody coming from out of town who doesn't know
Right.
about our parking ordinance, oh, we're not
Yeah,
allowed to do
all
this.
the rules have to be, that's one of our conditional uses.
Yeah.
We have that?
Is that it has to be posted in each unit that's being rented. All of our you know, like the
Was it-
noise, the parking,
But,
how many people can be in the
It
building,
also applies
how many
to number
cars.
2 on the list.
so is the
Restriction
parking,
on
what's
occupancy.
the problem the parking provision is remedying, I guess?
This all started because of Melinda Nichols, the one next door to her. They were
Melinda
partying all night
Swearingen.
long, and then they were parking in the streets, and she was having problems getting out, so that's how come.
Sure. Came to
They were
you.
blocking her driveway.
Right, now
Okay.
they're on the road, so that's why the DRB started putting those 2 conditional uses. So that the
Yeah.
people that are renting their properties, they have to tell their customers, you know, you can't be parked on the street.
Yeah, but I look at like, every once in a while Nick bitches about how the Phineas people park and block his entrance, and so we're not going and telling, you know, Darren that he can't have his guests park on the street.
Overnight,
Some are over.
Again,
overnight parking.
they park overnight on his
Oh,
street.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, at the end?
yeah, and I look at like, I mean, if you wanna talk
Well,
about.
Phineas parks in, at the end,
you know,
walks there and.
So I just, there's some degree of like, what's the problem we're trying to address? Is it the problem or is it only the problem of people who are renting short-term rentals, right? Like, I have a hard time splitting that in terms of if there's a problem with parking, we should enforce the problem with parking. We shouldn't just enforce the problem with parking with this one subset of people who park vehicles.
Maybe the solution is to make the owners of these properties, when they're renting something, aware of this. They may not know. To make the new people coming in that are renting, they don't know what ordinance is. If they're listed, the list of rules, then it's more information for them.
Kind of capacity. If they're adhering to the true capacity of that dwelling, like back to Melinda, the neighbor, that house there were more and more people there than should be legally. And stuff, it's the cars, the extra cars. So if each place is being respectfully a good neighbor, even though they're coming up here from wherever, and it's being rented to the 2 people, the 3 people, that would probably solve part of the car situation, because there wouldn't be an excess amount of people.
So maybe
But
it's not.
with the Melinda thing, there were 11 beds and they were allowed 17 people. There are 10 parking spaces. This is her.
How many bedrooms are there?
Well, let's not dive into like an individual.
So maybe it's not so much
There were
part
11
of
beds.
being,
We should keep
an ordinance as to inform the renters.
coming on
Okay.
one passing.
Okay, yeah, being reminded of the time. So I guess there's a lot for the board to consider here. I mean, really appreciate, putting forward some things to chew on, certainly. So I guess the next steps here would be just for the board to think on this, I guess between now and the next meeting, and we can open up for some discussion at the next meeting based on how people have kind of thought about it between now and then. And then we'll figure out how to move forward with it.
Would it be helpful for you to have the planning commission or part of the planning commission be at the next meeting, or do you guys want some time just to look at it as your board?
Yeah, the planning commission's always welcome to come, anybody.
But what's most
Yeah.
helpful for you guys to like?
I would say, why don't we take a beat and kind of think on it, and then we can have some discussion, and then out of that discussion, there's questions or follow-up that you'd like from the planning commission. And we can get you guys a written list of stuff you'd like to follow up on, and then that way it can be a little bit more structured.
That sounds great.
Okay.
Well, I would encourage the DRB as well, because a lot of the information we had, or part of it was from the DRB.
Yeah.
So, and regional.
Okay.
One of our concerns was that we not become a stone, where you can't get through town in
Yeah.
less than 40 minutes. And if you've noticed over the years, it's getting a little more clogged up every year at winter time.
Yeah, mostly because of the folks that park in my burners. Sorry.
It's okay. It's a dangerous little tri-section down there, though.
Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, well, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Planning Commission and DRB.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So
Could you go to the grant, so we can get out of here?
so next up is miscellaneous grant revenue from Montgomery Cares for our seniors. So I think this is just a simple kind of a fix.
Oh, well, thank you.
A simple fix in terms of something. So essentially, when Montgomery Cares for our seniors came to the board and asked for the town to act as their fiscal agent, we said yes, which means we receive the grant funds.
Write the check.
So we now receive the grant funds, but legally, Erin is not clear on what she can do with them. And so the action here would be to authorize the town treasurer to disperse the grant revenue for Montgomery Cares to our seniors to Parma Jewett and or Sue Wilson for the provisions associated with that activity as described.
Well, you can put my name. Yeah, we were gonna do it just.
Well, it's Linda Kluger, Sue, and myself are the board members.
Okay, is there a specific individual that you'd like to have the money paid to out of the
I think
three
that
of you?
most of the time you'll have the
Most of the
bills.
time I'm
Parma?
purchasing.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, then what I would do is I would move to authorize the town treasurer to disperse funds related to the grant revenue for the Montgomery Cares for our seniors to Parma Jewett upon receipt of receipts for associated expenses.
Yes, that's,
Okay.
thank you, yep.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
We have a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great.
And just to give you, we had our meal today, our first sit-down meal a year. It was great.
Yeah.
And we had we had 4 people not show, so we had 32 signed up and we did 28 dinners.
How was your dinner?
And yeah, your dinner, yeah, we gave the road crew, we had them come and pick up meals.
Yeah.
And it was great, the room looked really pretty, we had tablecloths and everything and
Yeah.
flowers,
Yeah.
it looked really nice.
Okay.
So anyway, thank you.
All right, so don't
Thank
forget
you.
your treats.
Yes.
Oh, yes, the cupcakes, they were
Hey,
delicious.
Sue, where's my table that I brought up?
Oh, it's in the closet.
Oh.
Wait, did you need it back? Right now? When do you need it for?
Well, we use it at farmers market.
Oh, okay, well,
Yeah.
you need it for when?
I'm not sure. We'll need it soon.
Well,
Okay.
Parma, I'm leaving tomorrow on vacation. Parma has the key to the closet, or the girls have the key to the closet.
Oh, okay.
Just make sure you take yours.
Okay.
Because there's 2 tables in there.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Next up is the 4th of July parade authorization. This is something we do every year for the 4th of July parade and chicken barbecue. Do you know, is the fire department technically the sponsor of the parade? Is it
the barbecue.
Yeah? Okay.
So,
I don't have the form here, but
Whatever they are.
yeah, I guess they're the ones that organize the parade. Anyway, we need to just authorize that we can have a parade on Main Street for July 4th, because V-Trans needs us to authorize it to be able to close the road.
I'll make a motion to authorize that we have the 4th of July parade
I'll second the
on
motion.
Main Street.
Okay, so we have a motion from Mark to authorize the 4th of July parade on Main Street on July 4th, 2022. We have a second from Emily. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Excellent. Next up is the fire warden appointments. So right now, the current appointments are expiring at the end of June. And so I would move that we appoint Billy Baker Senior as town forest fire warden and Joe Zartarian as town deputy forest fire warden. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Added item is just the Town of Montgomery Board of Listers. This is the listers requesting a 30-day extension in Title 32, Section 44342. This is the extension to get the grand list lodged. Is there a motion to approve the extension?
I'll make the motion to approve the extension.
Great, we have a motion to approve the extension from Emily. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second from Suzanne. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, motion carries. Other last quick added item was there was a request from Building Brighter Futures to store a bin in the base of the Grange Hall. This doesn't have to be formal. Does anybody have a problem with them storing a bin in the base of the Grange Hall?
The only thing would be them getting to it, they'd have to get a key every time.
Yeah. The only other provision I was gonna say is that we're not liable for any loss or damage to anything.
And that doesn't block any like fire exits or
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah, okay, great. So then with that, all that's left is overweight truck permits. We have them for,
Revisions of dollar and something?
we're gonna pass over that.
Oh, we did, okay,
Yep,
sorry.
yep. So this evening, we've got Blue Collar Septic, A&D Excavating, and Jeff Lawyer. Give Mark a second to look at them.
So I'll make a motion to approve the overweight truck permit for Blue Collar Septic, A&D Excavating, and Jeff Litter.
Great, is there a second?
Second.
We have a second from Suzanne. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we will vote. All those in favor of approving the overweight truck permits as presented, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, motion carries. That brings us through our agenda. Last item would simply be a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn from Suzanne. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
We have a second from Emily. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries and the meeting is adjourned. Thanks for hanging in there, Larry.